Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and that subscribe button to join the Couch Gang. And today we're going to be talking about the price per gallon of gasoline, and we're going to be throwing out a few examples and talking about my opinions on the matter. So before we do so, we need to understand what makes up the price of a gallon of gasoline, right? So in this visual, I pulled together from online what makes up that price. So here we see that the majority of it is crude oil, and then we have the other three categories that make up the remainder of that price and that are about 50% or less as impactful as the crude oil is, right? So we just need to get that visual in our minds for this conversation. Now, the question that everyone is asking is, why has the price of gas gone up so much lately? So there's a couple different reasons from my findings. Now, the first reason is that Russia has gone to war with Ukraine, and because Russia is one of the major crude oil producers in the world, then their war with Ukraine is having a direct impact on their crude oil production and price, therefore increasing the cost of crude oil internationally, because that crude oil price is set internationally. So if any of the major players have any issues with production or anything related to the production or getting that crude oil or getting that crude oil out of the country, it's going to have an impact on that price internationally. And it makes up the majority of the price per gallon, as we see in the graphic. So that's one of the factors. Now, another factor is the supply and demand. I said post-COVID supply and demand. So what happened is during COVID, everyone was just staying at home as much as possible and not driving around or doing less than usual. So what happened is the demand went down, and so followed the supply. So they started making, or we started making, everyone started making less oil because there was no need for it. So what happened is after COVID slowed down in this year, in 2022, the supply went back up, but the demand went back up, but the supply hadn't prepared for that. So now the supply is trying to catch up to the demand as well. So now both the war that Russia is having with Ukraine and the sanctions imposed on Russia are slowing them down with production of oil or distribution and inflating the price internationally, and also because of supply and demand. So there's two major factors that are playing the role in getting this price per gallon of gas so high and the crude oil price is so high. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about my opinions and what could be done later, but before I do so, I wanted to show you guys some examples. So what I did here is I pulled together three real world examples. These are live. So what that means is I went online and I pulled what the current average is and what the 2021 average price per gallon was of gas. And then I put together this visual so we could talk about it together and have it on paper and not just think in our minds and what things would look like. So in the first example here, we have California. There's three vehicles here, and we're essentially saying you're driving this amount of miles and you have a 4-cylinder or a V8, and what happens to the cost, right? So in this example here, we have three separate costs, and I just wanted to show you guys how much this could really impact a person. So for example, if I take this and I divide it as what the cost was before, it's about a 30% increase in the cost over the year prior, which is pretty big. Some of these cost increases, some people might say, oh, that's negligible, but for some people this might mean that you can't make your rent for a month, or you can't buy groceries for your family, or things like that. It's really important to think about those things and to be mindful of that. And you might say, I put a little comment here, oh, just drive less, cost of gas went up, drive less. Well, sometimes people drive this amount just to go to work every month. So why, what are they gonna eliminate? You're just not gonna go to work anymore. And what are you gonna do? Tell your employer, hey, I can't come into the office because I can't afford the gas prices right now. That's not going to fly most of the times. So I just wanted to bring up these costs and just show everyone that not everyone can do it and afford it, and not everyone's not going to be impacted by these changes. Now, you could do some damage control. That looks different for everyone, of course. It might mean that you have to cut back on a few things, but for some families, that's not an option. So we really have to figure something out. I think based on the gas price example here, or the breakdown, there's a lot of taxes in gas. I mean, there could be an interim, tax cut that the government could do to just alleviate it a little bit. But, are they going to do that? Who knows? We'll have to see. Another big thing and question I wanted to bring up for everyone, and let me know what you think in the comments, is should we have been 100% energy independent before looking to push clean or renewable energy? It seems to me that we have a pretty decent amount of oil imported from Canada, from Russia, and it's not that we do 5% of imported and the rest is, I'm saying we should be at 100% not import. So all our oil, we should be completely independent from anyone else. And I think would have been really nice to bring in, and I don't know if this is even possible, but to just have our own price of gas and not let other countries affect what happens here, because that way, if we were truly, or just have the least amount of independence, least amount of dependence as possible, because if we're truly as independent as we can be, then we can really focus on the renewable energies, right? So what that means is, if I don't have to worry about what's happening everywhere, I can really focus on becoming an independent country that has clean energy and has low emissions, or whatever you want to call it, instead of now worrying about what's happening overseas, because it's affecting our local economy so much, because gasoline is how we get around, how we get food, how we do everything, right? It's how we do everything right now. So I was talking to Matt, and he was telling me, this is a great example, I'm going to use it, credit to Matt. He said, if you have a cold air intake you're trying to install in your car, because we're car guys, that's how we do things, but your baby's crying, you can't go install that cold air until you've tended to your baby, right? So in this case, it's the same thing. You can't tend to renewable energies until you're completely independent, and then you just don't have to worry about it, and then you can gradually, at whatever rate best suits us, convert everything over to renewables. And also that gives you the time to get the infrastructure ready for renewables. Now, for example, we have all these companies pushing electric cars, which is great, but our infrastructure is not there. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time for that infrastructure to get there. So what we need to do is we need to make our current process as efficient and cheap as possible while we can. And then that way we don't have to worry about how much gas costs right now. And we can just focus on building the infrastructure and do what we need to do to move towards renewables, clean, whatever you want to call it, or just better fuel alternatives, whatever way we can get there without allowing outside sources to affect us to whatever extent we can, right? So for example, right now, say 15% of our progress is because of gas being affected by international situations or dealings or talks or wars. If we could get that 15% down to as close as possible to zero, that's what we need to do first in order to then focus on other things. And I think it's a pretty good idea. I like that viewpoint. But again, I could be completely wrong. That's why I'm here to present you guys with this information and see what you guys have to say about it. And then maybe I can learn something today as well. And that would be awesome. So if you guys like the video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to join the Couch Gang. And again, even if you don't like the video, still give us a thumbs up and still subscribe, because you know what? We can talk about it and we can still have a good time. So I'll catch you guys later.